Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collidercast, episode 150. I'm Steve Tudor.
No, I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm hot. I mean, no, I'm not hot. That's not my name. Sid. I'm Sid. Hello.
And I'm Rory Summers. Hello, everybody. Gosh.
It should probably be pointed out that we are currently recording this in the middle of the little UK heatwave.
Otherwise known as summer.
Yes.
I don't remember summers ever being like this.
They've all been like this, Sid. We did this last year.
Greta's right.
I don't remember being this hot when I was a kid. Definitely
I don't know. It's definitely humid. That's the problem. The heat isn't the issue. It's not that hot. It's just sticky.
You say that. My office right now is 28.
That is quite warm, I'll give you that. All right.
That's
I'll
a
stand
bit
down
toasty,
there.
that, yeah.
That's unpleasant.
Mine is 60 minutes. Hang on, that's not working. What's going on here? 27.4, so yeah, you win, Sid.
I don't know how hot this is, but...
No.
Probably best you don't know. What happens as well is it goes higher and higher as the podcast carries on recording because, of course, we don't want extra noise in there. So doors are shut, windows are shut, curtains are shut.
Yeah.
And your PC's pumping out heat because of the whacking great graphics card in it that's doing nothing.
Yeah.
Because I've got issues and I've instrumented my house, right? I've just looked at the temperature that the conservatory got to today. 41.
Whoa!
Jesus. Now that is warm.
That's a bit warm, that.
He's
That's a bit
really
too
toasty.
much. So, yeah, this episode of the Polyhedron Collidercast is sponsored by Campbell's Ball Soup.
Nice.
I'm not sure I like that flavour.
Is it the low salt version?
Mate, right now, given how much sweat's coming out of me, yeah, probably is.
Oh,
Probably
come
the high
on,
salt,
right.
extra salt version.
In other news, it's also episode 150, which is a pretty big deal, guys. 150 episodes. What are we doing to celebrate that one then, Steve?
We've actually been playing lots of games. That's what we've done.
Yeah, we've been
Yeah.
a board
To be
game
fair,
podcast where we're celebrating by playing board games. Who'd have
This is
thunk it?
actually coming at a weird time because normally we make a bit more of a big deal of it because we're still, like, suffering from the after effects of UK Games Expo because this is the first actual normal podcast in, like, 2 months, it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably only about 6 weeks. But, yeah, so now we've got to go back to normal and we've got a massive pile of games that we both picked up at Expo and then, like, we've had discussions with people at Expo. And I think me and Rory added them all up and we've got 5 episodes worth of content right here at the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've got games to talk about from now until about November, I think.
And that's on top of your BGG Top 100 as well.
Yeah, and on top of anything else we pick up this year, because it is only June. And yeah, like, for example,
True.
that list doesn't include Harmonies, which apparently is quite hot shit at the moment. And it's like, well, do we want to
I have already played it.
Yeah, you've got that. You've said it's interesting, is worth a
It
play.
is.
So it's like,
It
do we
is.
add that one in? And then, yeah, what else is going to come out? And then, of course, we've got Essen. What else is going to come out at Essen?
That's not important. No one cares about that. It's a minor show at best.
Mine is, yeah. So we've got lots of games to talk about. So shall we dive right in and avoid more bull soup talk?
We should actually probably talk about our actual sponsor, which is Kienda. So Kienda, they're a board game store, UK board game web store. If you'd like to buy a game, and let's be fair, if you're listening to this podcast, you do want to buy a game, then use the link which is in the show notes below, or just go to Kienda/Polyhedron Collider and get yourself a juicy little discount on that board game you're going to buy anyway.
Yeah. Sorted.
Hopefully on our
Everyone's
recommendation.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Are we going to recommend any games today, or is this going to be a share of shite?
Let's find out. In 1.
Oh, God, it's been a long time since we've done a bullseye reference, isn't it?
Wow.
Well, it depends what Bully's special prize is going to be.
Tin of
Are you
balls.
going to get a bull living in the middle of the Cotswolds? That's the question.
I got the speedboat, definitely.
Actually, no, that probably works. Cotswolds is probably the perfect place for a small yacht.
Of course. That just sits on the driveway under a tarp for 11 and a half months of the year.
I reckon it'd fit into his estate, you know.
I probably would, actually.
Right, guys, can we focus? Can we focus, please? Right, 30 seconds
mention it's
into
hot?
agreeing we
Did
were
we
going to talk
mention
about
it's
board
hot,
games,
Rory?
and we've been talking about putting a boat into an estate. Right, so the first game we're going to talk about is Terminus from Inside Up Games. Andy, take the lead.
Okay, if you insist. Well, Terminus is something that Rory and I actually played briefly for less than 1 hour at the Expo. When it was being sort of demoed there by Brandon from Brawling Brothers, and he did an excellent job, and we were very fortunate to grab one of his 2 only kind of demo copies. So we've got a shufti on. It's been passed around the Polyhedron Collider crew like the prison bitch, and we've all had a go, as it were. So,
Oh my God.
and it's a heavy Euro, I would say. It's not the heaviest of heavy Euros, but it's definitely a brain burner.
It's up there, yeah.
It is, yeah. Mechanically relatively simple, but there's a lot going on. There's lots to think about, and there's lots of ways to score points, which is already an instant tick. So it means there's lots of ways you can play the game, which is good. And ultimately, you are a kind of a town planner, basically. And you are responsible for generating or building or planning basically rail routes in conjunction with all the other players, and the person who gets the most, they're called prestige points, but let's be honest, they're all victory points, aren't they? By building an efficient track with lots of stations and hubs, and there are sort of common projects, which are basically, end of game scoring criteria, and the person with basically the most points wins as per. But the game operation of it is really clever, I think. It has this extremely sort of multifaceted rondel.
Nice work.
Which seems to be the thing this year, the rondel. We found, about 4 or 5 games at Expo that all worked on a rondel. So he's put himself about this year.
Kind of rondels. But yeah.
Kind of rondels, yeah, all right. Things where you go round a circle. Let's expand the definition. But ultimately, yes. So there are basically sections of this rondel that overlap. So you could go to one space, or you can go to the next space along, and you could still do a couple of potentially common actions, which gives you a really good think about, do I do these actions in a particular order? Because the game's quite tight. It's set over 3 years, and there are 3 sections to each year. So you basically get 9 goes around the bus. And then that's the end of the game. So you've got to be really quite efficient. Money is incredibly tight in the game, so you can't just go to the first stop on this run and go, right, I'm spending all my money because I'll get stuff on the next. Oh, I won't. Shit. You only get money really at the start of each year. So you've got to really think about what you're going to do, what you spend your money on, because you need blueprints and permits and cones and railways and stuff, all of these things. So you can actually lay some track, build some stations, and ultimately make a lot of connections which get you points and prizes and so on and so forth. There's a reasonable amount of player interaction because you can build your track into other players' stations. So there's a reward on both sides for doing that. There's an advantage not just because of the rewards you get, like money or power, but also it stops you having to build another station, which is an extremely expensive exercise. So there's a lot of player interaction in terms of building these routes. Now, not only can you take advantage of that, but you can also get in each other's way, which is also hilarious. On top of that, there are what we call, I think, the development. So it's essentially kind of Sim City, really. You put down, a green residential area or a blue commercial area, or weirdly, sadly, not a yellow, but a red industrial area, which is something Rory pointed out. Quite right.
Very unhappy. Very unhappy with that.
I agree. But these go over potential rail routes. So if you know your opponent's trying to go over one of these rail routes, you can dump one of these down and basically get in everyone's way. But they also give you special abilities. They generally make the base actions on the rondel more powerful if you've got access to one of those. So there's a lot, and they can be worth points and stuff at the end of the game, because if you've got a station next to development, that could be a criteria for getting some points. There's different areas of the board, so different basically represent different suburbs of the city, for example, where these lines go. And then there could be, again, bonuses for building rail stations in particular areas of the city as well. So there's a lot going on. But ultimately, get permits, get plans, buy railways, stick track down, qualify for projects. Game over.
Get to the last round and find out you don't have enough money to complete that project.
Yes,
or you're
absolutely.
missing a worker to put on the spot.
That's exactly right.
There's a couple of interesting things here as well. That you do have your little meeples, which I'm going to say the word, even though it's copyright strike right now.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, topical comedy.
Call it a people.
A people. And you have to, the public project, you have to put the meeples onto these public projects, which is an action which costs you resources to do. So you don't just like get victory points at the end for meeting the public projects. You have to have actually done an action to choose their projects, and there's limited spots on those, so not everyone
you have to invest in them, don't you? Yeah, because the meeples are called lobbyists, who essentially have to lobby for that project.
Yeah. But those same meeples can also go on your private objectives, which can bump it up to the next level, which potentially can get you more points. And I must admit, at one point in the last game I played, I thought, I've got several of these objectives, and looked at my meeples and went, I can't score half the ones I've actually achieved because I don't have enough lobbyists to put onto these projects. So there's so many facets to this game. I'm really impressed by how many different ways there were of doing things and how much variety there was. Now, I've only played this twice. So I've played it 4-player with Andy, Laura and Rory, and I played it 3-player last night, again with Rory and someone else, of course. And we had a completely different set of development tiles available.
Yep.
And a completely different set of public objectives available. And they changed the game completely. Like the first game we played, the objectives were all based around hubs, which hubs is when you upgrade your stop into a hub. So you basically put 2 stations on top of each other, which turn it into that. Whereas the second game we played, it was all about stops, and none of the objectives had anything to do with hubs. So the theme of the game changed drastically. In the hub game, everyone's like really tight together, really close, because they're all trying to build hubs. Whereas in the second game, everyone's trying to spread out because they're trying to build as many stops as possible.
Yeah.
And it just made it, although the core of the game, of course, was the same, it felt like a completely different game. I had to think about it a bit differently.
And I absolutely agree with you. But and to build on that, when we played the 4-player game, I discovered that I played suboptimally in certain key areas. So when Steve and I played it again last night, my objective was to be better at the bits I was previously shit on. Right,
it's a good idea,
which is a good thing to do. So I just was like, whatever happens, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to be better at increasing my capacity. I'm going to be better at building my track out as far as possible, and that's it. I didn't really worry about the rest of it. I just wanted to get those bits that I felt in my first game I got wrong. I just wanted to be better at the game. But on top of that, it was all of these different objectives. It felt like a completely different game, but using all of those key beats as well. Really clever game.
Yes. Again, when Laura and I played it as a 2-player with the Ultima, because you have to play it with an Ultima in a 2-player game. The Ultima's a bit weird, but it does work in a limited capacity. But again, because the objectives came out, they were almost diametrically opposed. So Laura and I did different ones. One of them was basically almost basically from one side of the map to the other, from like one corner to the opposite, which is what I did. So build loads of track. And Laura basically made loads of hubs. And we tied. It just shows to show you that I think from that, admittedly one game, does show you the game is incredibly well balanced in that you can do very, very different things and both score really well.
Yes.
And I think that's definitely to its credit.
Yeah, there are lots of ways to pick up lots of points.
I should probably point out as well, this game is absolutely beautiful looking.
It
really is.
Every single aspect of this game, it's a beautiful looking board. There's a slight issue with the board, which we might come back to in a second. But all the tokens are beautiful wooden screen printed tokens, really bright, vivid colours. So it's obvious straight away what each token is. All the iconography, there's a couple of places where it's like, what the frick does that mean? I'm going to have to look it up in the rulebook just to double check. But 90% of the iconography really is really easy to get your head around.
I agree.
For such a complicated game, it's very easy, I thought, once you'd been taught the basics, just carry on and just flow with it. I mean, there were a couple of the upgrade cards where it was like, what? What's that been? But then when you explained it, you kind of went, oh, right, okay, there you go.
But I think this is an interesting point about this game, is that although we're saying it's complicated, each of the individual actions you can take around that rondelle are quite straightforward.
Agree.
Each action is really like, you go to here to get some permits, you go here to get some cones, you go here to build stuff, you go here to activate a project. All of those actions are simple. The complication comes into is planning ahead, because you've got to do them in sequence. Because it's a rondelle, you can only go around this action selection in one direction.
And also, each area will only let you do one thing out of about 2 or 3 things at that position on the rondelle. So you couldn't say, for example, buy cone or get cones and upgrade your capacity, which obviously you need to
You've got
spend
to do
cones
one
out.
thing or the other. So then you've got to buy enough to go. I think with the permits in particular, I went and bought a load of permits because they were dirt cheap, because the game's got this fantastic economy as well, which we might need to touch on. Buying enough permits to go, I need it for this action and I need it for the next thing I want to do on my next loop around. I need to have stuff in the bank ready for these future actions, because I can't waste an action next turn coming back here, because next time I need to do something different.
And you can't buy too much, even if you do buy the stuff, because the inventory is aggressively small. You've only got 8 spots. So you can't just go, right, I'm going to get all the cones I can or all the permits I can because they're cheap. Because it takes up, 3/4 of your inventory. And you think, oh, shit, I need some blueprints and some permits and some power. Oh, crap, I can't do all of this. How the hell do I fit all of this in? It's really clever.
And then on top of all of that, the game actually makes a lot of thematic sense as well. None of this, although it is an abstracted, building this subway system, you're building these developments, everything kind of just makes sense. You've got to do X to do Y, to do this, to do that, and you've got to do it in this order. So it makes actually kind of thinking about it, planning your turns, and even teaching it to a degree, quite straightforward.
Agree. Yeah, no, I genuinely, I'm really struggling to find fault with it.
Well, I said there's a minor fault, which is the board is broken up into zones. Because we came across this in the UK Crupper actually with Andy. The board is broken up into zones, and there's 2 zonings, which is the region, and then I think the region also is the type of development you can go there, which are the SimCity colours you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And when there's nothing on the board, it's pretty obvious what's what. But when things start going on, when tracks and developments go on and the little hubs go on, it can be difficult to spot which stop and which square is part of which zone and which part of which region.
Yeah.
And you came a cropper because you were convinced you had like a stop in a particular space. And then we all pointed out, well, no, if you actually lift that up, you can see that's not that space. It's the wrong colour. Yeah. And yes, much swearing was produced.
That cost me 12 points. That's why. But no, it's a fair comment. It really is, because you only get this sort of really thin coloured line that's actually quite hard to see, beneath everything else going on. So yeah, it's a fair comment.
But we had it last night as well, didn't we? We had one of my objectives was to have connections in different districts to other players' stations. So we had to be really careful. Is this in this district? Is this station in this district? So I had connections up the wazoo, but are they all in different districts? And that gets a little bit fiddly to see once the board starts filling up. But that's a really small gripe to have, though, to be honest.
There's another minor quibble, which is I don't think some of the more advanced route rules are explained well enough. Because you've got your bog standard grid structure, which is the American grid, and then every so often there are paths that go across and paths that split, which you can use. And number one, Rory came across and actually made a legal move, which we didn't spot until like an hour later. Which was we couldn't rewind it and take it back at all. But we weren't sure at one point what the rules were for actually using, like going across like crosses and things. And the rule book suggested you could do things that didn't make sense. It was the only quibble with the rule book and the rules of the game that it just felt like it could have done with a little bit more explanation and examples.
Yes.
Because some of them I thought, even one of the examples of what I thought was a legal move in the rulebook went, what, really? That's a legal move? Okay. But they're quibbles. They're really minor things.
Really, really minor quibbles. But overall, this is a fantastic game. And it actually, when Steve and I were packing it away yesterday, it prompted the question, which I'm going to ask now, but I don't expect answers. Given the fact we are halfway through the year, do we have a best game of the year? Because I think for me, Terminus is going to be in that shortlist. I
already have another one, but I don't disagree.
Ooh.
I do.
I know. I don't disagree either. I think this is going to be a contender.
Absolute.
Already, yeah. And I want to play this again, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I've played this twice. I desperately want to play this again. Partly because I did the whole Euro thing. I don't know if anyone else does this. First go of the game, and you just go by instinct because you don't know what you're doing. It's the first game of Heavy Euro. Second time, well, I'm going to learn from my mistakes from the last game realise exactly where I went wrong and improve. And I got less on my second game than my first game, which is my pattern. I do this in every single heavy Euro.
I have that problem as well, Steve. It's like you go use the force the first time you play, and you think this is great. The second time you actually think about it. No, don't engage your brain. Just use the seat of your pants. They're a lot more reliable.
Yes.
Or you get rid of the mistakes you made the first time, and you make other mistakes instead.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, Obi-Wan was right. Feel, don't think.
Yeah.
But in seriousness, though, it's a good thing you all want to play it again, because I would really like to play this.
I think you'll quite enjoy this, Sid.
You will.
It's very interesting. It's not... I said it looks heavy because of the decisions you have to make, but it's not heavy like a Lacerda game is heavy, where it takes 3 hours to explain all the rules because every action's different. It's got the crunchy side of it, which gets your brain thinking without the tax on your brain of there is a rules overhead here that's making my brain scribble.
True.
Perfect.
It is good. It is when you do go to, most of the time, you're literally going somewhere and going, right, I'm just going to buy 2 things, next player, or I'm going to pick something up, next player, or I'm going to put a meeple down, next player. It's that simple.
So is this hotness available now?
I believe Kickstarter backers are getting their copies soon.
Yes. I don't think it's in the shops yet.
But it's not in the shops yet. So we really do have
exclusive.
Proper exclusive here. Yeah, proper early access to this bad boy. So, completely different game? No, this game has similarities. So we're going to talk about Windmill Valley here from Board and Dice. And this has similarities to Terminus because it also has rondels. It also has a board in which you make paths. It also has a sequence of actions which you have to do in sequence because you can't take them out of order. Yeah. In fact, there are lots of similarities here between Windmill Valley and Terminus that I've only just realised as I'm trying to make this link, and it's working. So,
seat your pants, man, as we've said.
Yeah. So Windmill Valley is a game in which you are growing tulips in the Netherlands.
As you
do. Trading and growing and I would say selling, but you don't actually sell them, you just plant them, don't you?
Yeah.
There's, again, much like Terminus, lots of ways in which you can score points. There are contracts you can fulfill. You have a little patch on your player board where you actually plant your tulip bulbs, and you get points for completing rows and for completing columns. And there are bonus points if you complete the row with all the same colour and all 3 rows different colours. You actually lose points if you have 2 bulbs of the same colour in the same column, which is I've not seen anyone do yet. I don't think anyone would be that desperate. No. Now, but the really interesting thing, TM here, that this mimic of Terminus's rondel here, is your actions are based on a windmill, which is a little player board with 2 cogs on it. Now, there are 4 player boards, and each one is ever so slightly different. Sid's looking at a picture of this now, aren't you, online? And you are intrigued.
Yes, with my face, give it away. I've seen 2 clears meshed together beautifully. Wow, that's a sexy player board.
And from an engineering point of view and an interesting player decision point of view, the second gear is smaller than the first gear.
Now, that was going to be my next question.
So there are less slots. So what happens is every turn you will set a speed, and then you will turn your windmill a number of turns equal to the current speed. Now, one of the beauties about this game is you get victory points for increasing the speed. So there's an incentive to try and make the game go faster, which I find quite interesting. When you turn it to the position, you'll have an arrow pointing to 2 actions, 1 on each cog. And at the beginning of the game, you have an either-or decision. You can take an action from either side. But one of the actions you can take is to upgrade your windmill, which involves taking a wedge off the board and placing it inside that windmill board, either replacing or upgrading an action. And one of these upgrades you can get is a plus, which allows you to take 2 actions in a turn. So there's a very clever thing about trying to work out when you've got the plus action where you're going to put it, because you want it to align with another action which meshes, but you can do that now, but the next time you go around the circle, it won't align. So you haven't really made an engine here. You've just given yourself options and extra bonuses.
Sid's very happy with that.
I'm very pleased by your description, Mr. Tudor.
I've got to admit, it's a really cool mechanic. It doesn't just look like a visual gimmick. It is an actual interesting mechanic, because it is much similar to that Terminus thing.
You're right, it is a rondel in many ways. You're having to do these actions in this order.
Yeah. Now, everyone's order is slightly different. And you only get like you only get a set number of rotations of your wheel as well. I believe it's 3 rotations of your wheel the entire game.
Yeah.
You might go a bit more because of the end turn. So you've got a limited number of turns. Actions is a bit of a weird thing. So as I said, because you can set the speed of this, there's an action to increase the speed. You can skip actions, much like we could say in Terminus, but that Terminus was just going straight past them. Here you're skipping them and then moving your wheel faster, and there's an element of being a bit of a dick. If you want to try and screw over your opponent, you can try and set the speed faster, so the next player either has to lower it and try and get there to do, or spend one of their resources to try and adjust the speed. But it's really interesting because it gives you an option of, you get so many turns, not actions, in a round. So you can play the game really slowly, where every typically takes 1 action, or takes all 6 actions from the wheel.
Cough,
or
Andy, cough.
Or you could ramp up the water level, and you could make sure you whiz through the game really quick and make sure
Cough,
nobody gets
Steve,
any actions.
cough.
Yes. Well, there's an actual strategy at the point when you think you're about to winning. There's an actual strategy in just ramping up the water, as fast as you can to try and speed the game up. There's other mechanics going on here. There is a market space in the middle, which allows you to plant and buy bulbs. That's quite interesting because it involves, this is another rondel, so rondels within rondels, just a pub full of nice men. And so, but there's interesting manipulation there about how you maneuver tokens around in order to take actions there. But the interesting thing about that is you get a number of actions equal to the number of tokens that are in a space, but they all have to be the same action unless you've got one of the upgrades. You've also got windmills, which go on a big board in the middle, and the windmills have to form a chain going back to the centre. And these windmills do 2 things. They give you an end-of-game bonus. So if you manage to clear all your windmills on a particular tulip, you score bonus points for each of those coloured tulips you planted. But they also give you access to more actions. And this is one of those games where you chain actions. You do something which can often lead you to getting an action, which due to a power-up gives you another action, and due to that one gives you another action, which means you can do another action. And some turns can be quite lengthy as you chain together. I've seen, I think, 6 actions in one turn at one point. That's about the maximum I've seen, but it can get quite complex. For what looks like a very pretty primary coloured game, it can get quite close. Now, I don't think it's as heavy as Terminus.
No.
I don't think decision making is anywhere near as complex. And I don't think there is a variety of ways in which you can score points. But I don't think, again, it's as deep as Terminus. You get contracts, which you can buy and place onto your player board. Again, absolutely beautiful components. Everything about this game is absolutely beautiful. Triple layered board. So not only do you have recesses for all your windmills and things like that, and your money counter, you also, when you slide the cards under, there's a stop so you can't slide the cards too far, which is very nice. Everything is very well laid out. All the graphic design is really nice, apart from one of the windmill icons, which every time we've got to look up because it's a bit weird. But that's just one upgrade. Everything else makes perfect sense. And much like Terminus, I've got one minor complaint about this game.
Really? I would have thought it would be a big complaint, Steve.
Yes, the board is far too bloody big.
So
I don't
big.
know why the board is, it's huge. It takes up my entire table to the point where I have to play it on my table, you have to tilt the board the opposite way to what you'd think, because you have 2 player boards as well, which is your tulip patch and your windmill.
Yeah. And of course, your player board, you need cards to go above it and below it. So your player boards take up quite a chunk of space. And they kind of need to.
Yeah. The player boards, I don't have a criticism about the size. The windmill feels the right size, but the main board feels like you could easily knock that down to 75% the size it is.
I reckon smaller. You can do
I
that
reckon
50.
even smaller. And if you look at the size of the board for, say, Salt and Sea, which you mentioned a few weeks back,
Yeah,
there's
really
the same
good
amount of
comparison.
information in there, and the Salt and Sea board is tiny in comparison. It is a complete table hog, this game, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, you could park a Corsair on the victory point.
Oh, yeah.
It is massive.
It is. And then, but the problem is with it is that some of it is laid out in a really bad way as well, I think.
Yes.
We when we were playing the 4-player game at the weekend, the first thing you have to do in your turn is set the water level. No, not set the water level.
No.
Open the gate.
Yeah,
You've got to
gate
change
speed.
the water gate, how much water is going to come through, and that adjusts the speed. So you'd think this is the first thing you have to do, and being from a Western culture, the first thing that if I'm looking for where do I go for the first thing, top left. Where is this? Bottom left. And it's just that's a weird thing. We kept forgetting to do it because it's not on the board where you'd think it should be. You go right. You go through your actions, top to bottom, left to right. No, it's not. This one you have to go to the bottom, then you might go to the top, then you might go to the middle, then you might go to this other half of the board. It's all over the place, and it's huge. It annoyed me how big this was.
And also, you need extra space to put all the cards and all the tokens. There's 2 decks of cards in there, and there's no space on the board for the cards. You're supposed to have them off the board.
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah. All that space, and you can't put them there.
And 5 different types of tulips.
And yes, there's 5 trays of different coloured tulips as well.
And then a tray for the cogs.
Cog tokens, yeah.
But look at the cogs.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
so nice. They're so... Oh.
They do work really well, to be fair. The actual physical engineering of them, the way they mesh, is actually really, really nice. It's such a smooth action. You don't have to force it. It doesn't struggle. It's quite nicely engineered.
It was quite funny watching Laura being the non-mechanical engineering minded person here who tried to turn both cogs at the same time and couldn't work out why they wouldn't turn. Yeah. She was trying to turn them both the same direction. Yeah. I don't understand what I'm doing. Just turn one wheel and the other one goes on its own.
I don't think I've ever seen a player board like it.
Sulkin's the closest, where the entire board does something similar.
In the middle, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's all kind of you're screwing each other's cogs up.
There's Gutenberg.
Right, yeah, you've got Gutenberg, of course, yeah.
But we'll gloss over that because Steve and I played that at Expo last year and we went, next!
I like the printing press thing.
Yeah, that was the printing press one, yeah. The other game that it reminds me of a little bit is Tiny Epic Pirates. And that is, it's the pirate wheel. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't actually turn, but you do have segments, and when you set up your game to start with, your player board is the wheel, and you throw down your segments and it just goes in that order, and it's a bit more of a rondelle, but more of a literal rondelle there. But that's the only one I know that's similar to it.
There's a couple more as well, because there's Barrage in a way where you commit your resources onto this little wheel. It's not an action selection, but it basically ties up your resources for a little while. So that kind of spins round. But also there's... God, what's the other one I just thought of now? Glass Road. Yes, yeah. Glass Road, where you basically you decide, right, I'm going to make some bricks, and that takes a certain amount of time. So you've got to rotate that part of the wheel around that amount, and then that can change what you can actually make and what you get out of it at the end, which is actually really, really clever rondelle. It's just such a dull game. It's a really clever mechanic.
There's a re-theme of that. They're re-releasing it this year. There was a demo. I forget who was doing it, but there was a demo copy floating around Expo that some people reviewed, and it looks quite... So it's Glass Road, but they've kind of blinged it out and changed it and tweaked it a little bit.
Okay, that sounds all right. Because the core mechanic of Glass Road is really clever. It's just the game itself's not very interesting.
So if you do like the sound of that, or if you do like Windmill Valley, there's lots of games that are kind of tangentially kind of similar in that cog wheel thing going on.
This was stupidly hot shit as well at Expo, wasn't it? Because it completely sold out.
Completely sold out at Expo, yeah. I don't believe you can buy it yet. I think it's still pre-order at this point.
Ran out. Yeah, literally ran out.
So other than the size of the board, chaps, because you did go on a bit of a deep hole there. I'm not going to, you were scarred by that board. Putting the size of the board aside, because you could just stand further away from it. What about the game itself? Is it one you want to go back and play again?
I don't have any choice because Amanda loved this. So we played it, I think, we played it 2 times in one day. So that shows you kind of how popular it is in our house. I think it's a really, really good game. It's not as heavy as like Terminus. It still gives you lots of things to think about, and it's still, I'd say, midweight, edging a bit higher than that Euro.
Midway.
Yeah. So there's still plenty of meat on that. And I said, I really, really like it, and I'm still exploring some of the strategies of what's different. I mean, I'm starting to see a little bit of pattern with some ways in which you can win. I'm worried after, 7 or 8 games, whether it would just be coming down to a race of certain aspects.
Yeah, I understand what you mean there. I really enjoyed this. This is a great midweight game. It plays really quickly and the games play very differently. However, I do like, I think to a degree, Terminus, and I think another game that we're going to talk about in a little while. This is a game about optimization. And I think once you crack that optimization egg with Windmill Valley, it will get a little bit simpler. And I think at that point, you're going to have that that learning curve. Once you've achieved a certain level of optimization, playing with anybody that's not of a similar level to you will not be a challenge for you, and it'll be really boring for them. Like, even like the difference between my first game and my second game, I knew I had to get the objectives. I knew I absolutely had to do this. There were things I learned from my first game that I knew I absolutely had to do, and there are things I've learnt now. So in my third game, I'm going to be even better, which you could argue that's the whole point of a Euro, that you play and you get better and you iterate and you improve. But I think it's very hard for a new player to be able to access and see those synergies and see those connections and see those things. Particularly with a game like this, as Steve said, you do an action to do an action to do an action to do an action.
I mean, I suffered with that, Rory. That's the thing. Right? We played the first time, and I could not see it. I did not get on with it at all. I don't hate it. I don't think it's a bad game. My brain just could not get around it. And then you and Steve were just running away with it. And I was like, how have you done so many things on your wheel, Steve? How have you got so much stuff out? We've gone around the wheel the same number of times, and you've achieved 2 or 3 times more than what I've done. It's not a criticism of the game. It's not criticism, obviously not criticism of Steve, but it's criticism of myself, because I just could not work out how he'd been so efficient, or so much more efficient than I had. And I think you're right. It definitely needs more than one play to get your head round.
Yeah.
Okay, so... do you want to play it again?
See, there's
that's
the
tell, isn't it?
There's the tell. I'm not sure I do.
I absolutely do want to play this again, but I think if I personally played with Steve and Amanda again, and got my ass handed to me again, I would be soured by that. Even if I improve, because I think your rate of improvement, if our rates of improvement are always the same, but you're always going to beat me because you're always that little bit better at optimization because you've got that bit more experience. And I think that might be my problem with this game, is that you're better than me, and I think you'll always stay better than me.
Which, do you want to move on to the next game?
Because I think this is a great segue.
It's a great segue into the next game, because I think this is a wider discussion of game design in general, and it's worth mentioning the next game before we go any further into that discussion. So I want to talk about Sand from Devere Games, which we have played quite a bit between us. I think all 4 of us have played this game now. Did you manage to play this last night, Andy?
I did.
Yeah. So
I love how grumpy Sid looks already about this.
Let's explain.
You explain the game first.
Rory, explain the game first.
Let my piss come off the boil while Rory explains what's going on.
So Sand is set in a post-apocalyptic world in the future where we are using giant sandworms to help transport goods around. We're taking plants, usually from the cities, and we're moving those into the nether regions and towards the mountains, and we're trading those plants in, and we're going to get relics, and we're going to have artifacts, and then we're going to try and ship those artifacts and relics offshore back to the north end of the board, overseas, to get loads and loads of points. Every time you trade, you're going to get money. Money is points. Every time you trade, you're going to be unlocking and adding new stuff to your player board, which is your travel log, and that's going to give you more points and give you more abilities to unlock. And this whole way through, I should mention that this is a Euro style pick up and deliver. You're managing your actions, you're taking costly decisions, you're trying to optimize, you're trying to min max, you're trying to squeeze the most amount of efficiency out of every single turn, because every turn in this game, for a pick up and deliver, picking stuff up is a pain in the arse. Moving is damn right painful, right? Even delivering something is, well, that's the easy bit, but it's a question of where you're going to deliver it, when you're going to deliver it, how you're going to do it. Everything in this game is a cost. Everything is going to cause you some sort of detriment, and you've got to be able to offset that detriment with all of the benefits you're going to pick up. Lovely, lovely pick up and deliver game. Nice big chunky dice. Lovely components, which I don't know if Andy's going to have a problem with the colour blindness he had in this game. And that, in a nutshell, is the game. Move around the board on these giant caterpillars.
It's probably worth mentioning the main mechanic here.
Oh, with the dice.
It is quite unique. So basically, there's four dice. There's 4 dice that get rolled at the beginning of every round, and their values get set. And so it's a dice selection game in which you use these dice to take actions, and certain dice colours can only be used in certain actions. And of course, the roll of the dice determines the strength of that action. But everyone's using the same pool of dice.
And the dice don't change in the round. It's worth pointing that out.
And and the dice don't change. So if shit dice come out, everyone's screwed. Yeah. Unless they've got
the player power that changes.
Yeah. That. But what's interesting is at the beginning of the game, you can only use 3 of these dice. So basically, you only get 3 actions. But as soon as you grab something, so it's a pick up and deliver game. So as soon as you grab a cube, which is an item, it blocks off one of those dice. So if you take 2 pieces of cargo, that blocks off 2 dice.
Yeah.
And if you're really stupid, you take 3, which means you're then crawling around the board.
Can't move, in fact.
Yeah, at the beginning of the game, you can't even move because you need a dice to move. But you can unlock a 4th dice later on in the game. And it's worth mentioning that central mechanic because that is where most of the complexity and difficult decisions in this game come from, because you are fighting with those dice most of the time. Okay, if they all roll 6s, brilliant. I mean, you still got to optimize which ones you use because carrying cargo blocks off a dice. But there's a definite element of, I can use that dice for this, or should I use that dice for that?
It's also a specific dice, because if you have blue cargo, you can't use the blue die, and that makes things really hard.
Because you need your blue die to water your worm.
Yeah.
You need your red dice to feed it. You need your black and your white to heal it. So you've got what you pick up when you pick it up. Because, it's not just losing an action, it's losing a very specific action for the rest of, until you make that delivery.
And of course, if you, as Steve just said, as we just said, that, if you get crappy rolls, you might have chosen, if you get like a 2, a 3, a 1, and a 6, and you've just happened to have blocked off the die that is the 6, you're boned.
And there are ways to mitigate this stuff. There are ways to mitigate it. And there are ways that you can make him improve. You can get some followers, you can unlock followers, you can upgrade your worm, which make things easier and cost less as the game goes on. But Sand is absolutely a game of optimization, and Steve and Sid and I have had some really long, in-depth discussions when really we needed to go home, but we stood around the table talking about this game, and I think it's the great thing about this game for me is, firstly, I'm really, really good at it. Okay. And secondly, it really encouraged a lot of thought. We had a really good chat, every time I've played it, it has encouraged a great deal of thought afterwards. But I'm really good at it, so I'm happy.
I think Sid should talk. He hasn't talked much in this episode.
Go on, Sid.
And you can tell he's been stewing for the last 5 minutes.
No.
Figuratively and literally.
Definitely literally.
I think you've pendulumed on this game quite a bit as over the weeks since we've played it.
So here's the thing, right? I played this game. I got really angry at this game to the point where I was going to flip the table at one point. I thought, we had to. Rory said, "Do we want to stop?" I said, "No. Well, I've started. We'll get to the end of this stupid game, right?" But then it did a weird thing to me. So we had that, we finished the game, and then on the way home, I was thinking about the bloody thing, and I was thinking, I left Steve's house going, don't want to see that game ever again in my life. I don't want to be anywhere near it. And then the reason I didn't want to be near it, right, was simple. Is it felt like I was being bullied by Rory, right? Because Rory played it before. And Rory, having played it before, just mopped the floor, right? He got that little bit ahead. He was more efficient on his first and second go, probably. That was it. He got lucky dice roll, maybe, or he was better skilled. I don't know, but he got an edge, right? And he got the edge really early on. And from that point on, I just saw this gulf just grow and grow and grow between me and what Rory was doing. And Rory was taking half a dozen actions. He was like round the board like there was no difficulty at all by kind of midway end game. And that was me crawling. I couldn't even go on a bloody shortcut, right? And the whole thing just felt like I was being bullied the entire game. I didn't enjoy it at all.
The interesting thing I remember, because I think the turn order was, Sid, you took your turn and you did your 3 actions. And because of where we started, I then did my 3 actions, and my first 3 actions were exactly the same as yours.
Yeah.
And at that point, the differences began.
That's it, exactly that. So I don't think I did a bad start. I messed up somewhere, and it wasn't a big mess up. It was not knowing a game. It was making that little mistake of the first time playing it, and I don't like necessarily think I wanted a catch up mechanic. I just didn't want a punish mechanic, and I felt punished the entire time through this game.
So did you? I'm trying to work out how that could have happened. Is it basically because you picked up a cube and he didn't, Rory?
No. What it is so what we haven't described is when you pick up a cube and you deliver it, it doesn't go back into the supply. It goes on your game board.
So you get the benefit. Yeah, okay.
And when you put it on your game board, you get a benefit, and that benefit changes. You've got several slots because you've got several categories of cube. You've got basic cubes, you've got advanced cubes, which you have to trade 2 basics to get an advanced, and then there's some extra ones after that, which I never really got to, so I don't care. But as you have choices, then you have choices about whether you go for some of the advanced cubes, which are usually worth more, whether you go for the basic cubes. Also, the cubes, because it's a pick up and deliver game, it's a market-based game. So the value of people buying the cube when you drop it off and deliver it changes depending on where you drop it off. Now, I made a realization after the second game, which was too late, that Rory was just selling any old shite to anyone.
Yeah.
And what he was doing was just upgrading. He was putting the things on his board, and it was the board actions that were making him improve his worm quicker, allowing him to unlock the upgrades, which basically made him more efficient. So then he could then go, well, I've now sold all the shite. I've basically done the Alan Sugar Amstrad thing. Now with the big boys, I can go do some proper work,
Make an
and do
Amiga.
some proper business dealing.
It's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple. Rich get richer. The rich get richer because they've got more they can invest each time they invest. And so what's happening is Rory was able to just creep ahead by upgrading his worm that little bit. So he had maybe 2 or 3 movements that he got a bit further. He got another couple of drop-offs.
Because it cost him less.
Because it cost him less.
Yeah.
And that, when you couple that with maybe an unlucky set of dice rolls or something, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. The point is, once you start creeping ahead, it is damn near impossible to catch up.
And there's very little you, as my opponents, can do to really slow my roll.
So I think what really got me at the end of this and what really angered me was I didn't feel like I was making a difference to my own moves. My moves became mechanical. So for the last, 2 rounds, maybe, I just felt like I was going through the motions. I was doing what I had to do something, so I did something, knowing that it was completely futile.
And this here is, not to backtrack now, but this is the similarity to Windmill Valley. That when players that understand it and understand the optimization and understand the action stacking start to get ahead, there is nothing you can do to stop them. All you can do is try and catch up. And if they already know how to get ahead and stay ahead, you ain't got hope in hell.
You're on a hide into nothing. You might as well just give up.
You are playing for second place.
It's not enjoyable.
It's interesting to compare these 3 games, Terminus, Windmill Valley, and Sand, because it's where Terminus shines here.
Yeah.
Because there's no optimization strategy in Terminus. Yes, you can get upgrades and pay for your upgrades, but you're spending quite a lot of resources to do that. Yes, you can put developments down which give you better actions, but you're spending resources to do that, which could be spent getting victory points in another way. And I think it's where Terminus balances it right.
And you can get in other people's way as well. You can physically stop someone building track there, so they have to rethink. Yeah, exactly.
So you have to rethink it. Sand, I think Windmill Valley sits in the middle here. Windmill Valley is an optimization game, but Sand is a super optimization game. And my worry is there is one optimized path to victory in this game. So it's not even a case of... I'll rewind that a little bit and I'll explain where I'm coming from. when we played, I was worried there was no catch-up mechanic. And this is mimicking what Sid was saying. I was worried there was no way for us to catch up with Rory. And I realised afterwards that that's not the right thing, because catch-up mechanics are a controversial thing anyway. The old blue shell in Mario Kart, it's not rewarding you for doing well. It's actually punishing the person who's doing well.
Yeah.
But then I realised that what it really needs then is you need this point when you go, well, this strategy isn't working, I need to pivot. And my issue with Sand was there was nowhere to pivot to.
Yeah.
No.
In the end of the game, you're still just buying and selling the cubes to put down on your board to unlock. And my concern is, and bizarrely, I want to play Sand again to really see if this theory is correct. But my theory is, and my concern is, there is an optimized route through this game until you unlock your third level of your worm. And after that, you can pivot and choose what you're going to do. Until that point, I don't think you should be thinking about anything else. No. Just sell any old shite, unlock that worm. That gives you more actions. You don't have to constantly keep feeding and watering your worm. Off you go.
And get the companion that allows you to move twice.
No, I think that's an option, because I think that's an option that comes later. I think the upgrade of the worm is the ultimate one, because I didn't get the move twice last time, because you still need the resources to move twice.
So I know that. But yeah, you're right. That's true. Yeah, upgrade the worm, get the move twice. I actually got the one when I played. I actually got the one that allows you to heal using one die, not both. Yeah, which made a big difference. Because when you do the move twice, or if you go along the shortcut path, which obviously you can zoom around the map a bit more, it's obviously very damaging to your worm. So I used that, and I think that's possibly the better option.
This game is I don't think all that this game is for me is how quickly you can move from A to B, and if you can do that on the shortcuts, and you can make it cheaper to do it on the shortcuts, you win. End of discussion. Yeah. That's it. Simple as that.
It's also very dependent on what cubes come out near you.
To some extent, but if you can move fast, it doesn't matter, because you put yourself where you need to be. And this was the thing: is
but
Rory
if they're near you, you don't
that,
need to move, so you've got the extra advantage.
You still need to move down the shortcuts, because even between adjacent cities, you've got two moves to get there.
There is a look of the draw element, but you need to first have gone to that location, removed the cubes, done something with them so that it's empty, so that it can be replenished, and hopefully be replenished with something good. It's quite a long shot to actually go. You can't put your eggs in that basket.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
no. I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying you've got to be very lucky to be able to use a city's location goods, shift them to your benefit. Then it just happens to reproduce with something good that you can then do again. The optimization is you've just got to deliver stuff. This is a very pure pick up and deliver. And if you try and do anything else, try and do anything clever, there is no room to pivot, because you just have to do that one thing, and you have to do that one thing very well. Terminus and Windmill Valley, they're not quite so strict in what they want you to do.
I'd say Windmill Valley is just as bad, because I felt completely out of the game in Windmill Valley, as we've already said. I didn't find it fun for that reason. I just thought it was a slog to the end.
It sounds like you had a similar experience with Windmill Valley as I've had with Sand.
Yeah. Weirdly, though, I did better with Sand. I mean, I beat Alora, which is quite an impressive achievement on its own, to be fair. Not by a huge amount, but enough. But I think I got it quicker than she did. But again, she couldn't catch up, because I was already that one bit ahead. I had one or two objectives already in the bag, and I was way further down the deliver a load of shit. I'd already finished upgrading my worm, and I'd got 3 people. Admittedly, we're on like day 3, whatever it was by then. But I was that one step ahead, so I was okay. It wasn't much in it, but the biggest problem I have with Sand, it's really boring.
Wow. Oh, see, I'm really the opposite. I really like, and I think you guys said to this one, I just see through the matrix with this game. The first time it hit the table, I got it. I could see through it, and I could see I will need to do this, to do this, to do this, to go there, to pick up that, to drop this, then unlock this. And I just got it. And I love chaining those sequences in my head and then actually being able to pull it off and making sure that, yes, I've done it right. I have made sure I've got just enough water, just enough food, just enough health, and I've done all of that, and I've succeeded. Let's do it again.
And that joy you have for the game is why I hate it. Because you have that feeling from it. And I want that feeling, but I know I can't ever have it because I'll be playing with you and you will beat me every single time this game lands on the table.
See, weirdly, I had that as well, Rory. Probably not to the same extent you do, because you've obviously, you've played it more and you've got a higher score. I saw it and I was fairly satisfied with how I was doing things. I'm sure I could have done them better, obviously, because I played it more and stuff. And I kind of got it because I went to a city, picked up the cubes. I could do that. I could heal my worm there and then take the die for there. It'll roll, and I've got a bunch of white things I can take advantage of, and blah, 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 blah. All of that felt reasonably satisfying for me. But the problem with it is, I think this is a problem I have personally with this kind of game in general, and it comes back to Steve's comment about this kind of game design, is I have no interest in just playing a game to optimize it and get slightly better at optimization. I want to see what a game can do like Terminus, where you can poke a different aspect of it and play it in a different way. The problem with Windmill Valley and the problem with Sand is you have to play them in exactly the same way every single time, and that's why I find it boring. Because I've played it once, I've seen everything it can do. Okay, I could get better at it, that's fair.
I've been saving this comment.
Okay.
Did you play with the coloured, the cultist?
The shaman.
Shaman.
I did, actually.
Did you unlock the shaman?
Yeah.
And
Did you
used it?
understand how it worked?
No.
See, the next time I play Sand, I'm going to unlock that shaman, and I'm going to try and figure out how to score highly with that.
Is that the rocks cogs thing?
Yes.
Guy?
I know how it works, I just couldn't get it to work because I wasn't in the right... I basically put my camp down in a stupid place, but...
Yeah. Well, no. The reason I brought it up is because I think there is an alternative strategy in this game which involves that shaman. But the problem is, every time we've played, everyone's looked at the rules for the shaman and gone, what?
Basically, what happens is you need to get one of the sort of the higher end boxes, the grey one. Essentially, I think it's one of the yellow or green ones. Where I couldn't. That's another problem I have with it. I'll come back to is the colours of the cubes. I couldn't tell them apart. It's a big colour blind problem. The idea is basically you have to get one of those sort of higher end cogs that sit in the cog row, basically, on your board. You have to put that into your house when you put it down, and then when you take it from your house, as soon as you take it from your house, you lose all of your scoring cards, and that basically becomes your sort of kind of end game scoring thing, is essentially those boxes that you then sell, I think, through your shaman, get you the points on your board, rather than you getting the points on the cards. So it's an alternative kind of end game scoring strategy.
That is part of what the shaman does.
But you can also use acolytes in cities, and you get little bonuses for getting them there, and they'll give you extra stuff every time you do something. But I didn't fully get to it, so... Yeah.
But isn't that the other problem with this game? Is the dog shit book that's called the rule book.
See page 24.
They've tried to do something really different with this rule book, and that is they want to explain all the mechanisms of the game before telling you how those mechanisms will work as actions in the game.
They didn't do a very good job.
It explains the parts of the actions before telling you the actions in the sequence of play. So you're learning about, I'm learning about the shaman. I was like, but how do I get the shaman?
Yes.
What does the shaman mean? How do I unlock the shaman? No, we're going to tell you about the shaman first. And then we're going to tell you about, the healer person. It's the rulebook is backwards, unfortunately, which is from a Devere game. I was really disappointed with that.
I agree.
I wonder if this is part of my grumble with this, because I played this almost straight after I'd played Salt and Sea.
The world of difference between the quality of rulebook between those two games is
forget
frightening.
the rulebook. Salt and Sea, you just put it on the deck and you play it.
Yeah,
right.
It's a lot simpler.
It's
intuitive, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to hate on it because it's not a particularly bad game. It just I don't want to play it again. And whilst I was thinking about it on the way home, I was then thinking about it again today on my drive today, and no, I don't want to play it. I'm not interested in it. I'm like Andy. I don't want to be picked on.
And that's now a problem for me because I really like this game, but the people I would play this game with now don't want to play it with me.
Yeah, that's what happens to bullies. They get left on their own in the cold.
I don't think I've ever been called a bully before. It's very rare that ginger people get called bullies.
That's very true. They're usually victims.
Every dog has their day, Rory, and this is yours, mate.
Laura asked me the same question actually this evening before the podcast. We were talking about, she always asks me what you're going to be called tonight. And I say, to be honest, I don't know. I've not looked at the notes yet. But I knew this time we were obviously going to be talking about sand. And she says, what do you think? I said, do you know what? I just find it boring. But I know that if I played it again, I'd probably do better at it. And it's all about getting better at it. The problem I have is I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Rory, I want to play it at least one more time.
I'm brilliant. Down
because
for that.
I want to see if my theory that you just deliver any old dross just to upgrade your worm is valid, and I also want to use those cultists in one game just to see if there is alternative strategies in this game.
That's it. I want to explore that as well.
Yeah, and now I do have to. I should have also caveated this entire thing at the beginning of the discussion that it's a pick up and deliver, and this is cementing my opinion that all pick up and deliver games are rubbish and they're boring. But I do actually want to play this one again.
But I think this is a really interesting pick up and deliver, because I think it makes the picking up, the delivering, the moving are actually quite weighty things. It's not it's not a simple pick up and deliver game. I really enjoy Sand. The rulebook is rubbish. I think it looks quite pretty on the table. I like the components. I like the game. I like that I'm really, really good at it.
I have a few design quibbles about it, then.
What
Number
colours?
one, the objective cards that you score at the end, you pick at the end of each year. There's a number on them, which determines turn order. Those numbers are really hard to see.
They are.
They're a pain in the arse. They should be a lot bigger and clearer, or at least not beige on beige. Like black on white would be quite nice, so you can actually see what's going on. 4 of those cubes, 2 sets of 2 of those cubes, I could not tell apart.
Yeah.
The green and the orange, too similar.
I had that realisation last night. We were sat playing Terminus. I was like, I wonder how Andy's getting on with Sand.
Badly.
And I just went, oh, he's not going to do well with these colours.
No, he's not. And the pink and the grey, because I just can't. Pink looks grey to me anyway, because I can't see red properly. Same colour. So I picked up the wrong fucking objective card, thinking it was yellow, I think it was, and it turns out it was orange. I'm like, oh, great, wonderful. I couldn't tell them apart. It's an absolute bloody nightmare. So for that, I just can't. I just cannot play it reliably.
You add to the fact that the board looks like they've just thrown every colour at it and made it.
It's very confusing.
It's like some kind of confusing mess of shit on the board.
It's very pretty. It's very, very
and also
pretty.
the acolytes are too bloody hard to see on
It
that.
is pretty,
Sid's right.
Rory.
It is a mess. The cities are a mess.
Yeah,
they're
pretty.
thematic, but you can't see the bloody acolytes. They're too
Right.
messy.
Okay,
It's
let's
a
enough
pretty
of this.
game if you didn't have to play on it.
Right, enough of this. Let's go talk about another board for another game.
With really
can't
crap
see stuff
icons on it. Yes.
Right. Let's quickly talk about Rebirth then. So Rebirth, I believe, was on Kickstarter about a month ago. In fact, we mentioned this on the pre-Expo podcast, didn't we?
We
And two
did,
of you
yeah.
backed it
Yep.
in mid-podcast. Rainer Knizia Games, so therefore you already know, if you are familiar with Rainer Knizia, the prolific board game designer who I believe has designed something like 350 board games. It's an abstract game because that's what he does, and someone pastes the theme on afterwards. I'm going to say right from the start, I'm not a massive fan of his work.
Okay.
I'm one of those people. But this is a game in which you are, I know we've mentioned terraforming Scotland, but it's re-terraforming Scotland, in which you have a map of Scotland. I believe the Kickstarter game house has a map of Ireland as
Yes,
well.
it does, yeah.
And you are placing either farms, wind farms or pylons, I'm not entirely sure which, or towns onto the board into spaces. So it's a hexagonal board. The majority of spaces are already determined on what can go there. So it will either have a farm icon on or a lightning bolt icon for power, or it will have a little line around it to say it is a town or city. And you will pick one of your tiles at random, little tiny tile, and they're all different shapes, so you can easily spot the difference if you're colourblind. And you will place them on the board in the designated spot and score some points. Really easy scoring. So, for instance, if you put one power card token down, it's 1. If it connects to another one of your power tokens, that's 2. If it connects to another 2, well, that's 3 points, and so forth. Cities are a bit more complicated. They're based on the number of houses on the tokens. Whoever has majority gets the top points. Next person gets the bottom points, and they're split based on the size of the cities. There are also castles on the board. So every basic city in Scotland, when you go place a tile next to a city, you put a castle down, And that's done by majority again. So if someone has more tiles around that city, they replace your castle with yours. Finally, there are cathedrals. If you place a tile next to a cathedral, you place one of your cathedral tokens down and you get an objective. These are generally worth 5 points if you have to do something, or there are a few objectives that just give you 3 points just for the showing up, basically. And these will be things like have the largest farm, or control the English border, or control the largest coastline. Some of them gives you purpose, allows you to go forward and look forward. Some of them you'll go, well, that's a bit useless now because I need to surround Perth, and Perth is already surrounded by Andy's tokens, so that's not going to happen. It's a very quick game. I think even with Rules Teach, we played it in about an hour both times.
It was less than that, but yeah. Yeah,
I think when we played it at 4-player, I think we managed to play it in maybe 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It was really, really quick.
Very quick, very simple.
Very accessible. I think that's the key
very
with this game.
accessible, yes. Completely different to the last 3 games we've talked about. As you said, very accessible. You pick a tile at random from your pile. You've limited decisions on where you can put it there, try and maximise your points based on objectives and area control. And that's it.
Yeah.
And that's the abstract part of it. It's based on a map of Scotland. It didn't need to be. It could be absolutely anything on the theme, but that's a Reiner Knizia game for you.
Right.
I liked it. Go on, Sid.
I was going to ask you, what's wrong with it? Because so far, you're describing something that sounds fun.
And I think that's the great key word, actually. This is a fun game. This is very accessible. It's very easy. It's very fun. There isn't a lot of thinking. There's a little bit, but not a lot. And you just go, and you just go with the flow, and you've played a game, and it was an enjoyable way to spend 40 minutes.
And there's a nice bit of swearing.
It's a nice bit of swearing, yes. Someone takes the castle off you. And
yeah, who the hell put that farm over there? I didn't spot that. That means I can't put fucking objectives now that I was trying to get.
Yeah, why have we let Steve get a wind farm that's now 6 points apiece? Why has nobody bloody stopped him? There's some nice interactions like that.
And nice little surprises when you take a castle off someone. Like, why are you taking my castle off the board? Well, I'm now surrounded and you don't.
Yeah.
There's been a coup.
There's a coup.
But I think to talk about why it's not an overwhelmingly wonderful game, I think Andy should lead the charge on this bit. Look at that face.
He can't even muster the energy to tell me how shit it is.
It's not shit. It's not shit. It's not shit. That's not fair. I just didn't enjoy it. And for one reason and one reason alone. There is absolutely almost zero control over what you get. In fact, there's no control over what you get.
There's no control over what you get.
And that's why I don't like it. It could be fixed by one issue, one thing at all. Start with 2 tiles rather than 1, so you can pick which one you want to put down. That would be so much better. Because there'll be a little bit more strategy on that and have a little bit more control over, I could get in Rory's way, I could get in Steve's way. So not a massive amount of control, because you still have the same issues, but it would be some.
I can see that being a house rule for a lot of people, actually. That I have, you draw 2 tiles, you pick one, the other one goes back in the bag, or you draw 2 tiles, one of them goes in front of me down, the other one I play, and then I draw, and I've always got that one.
I think that would be slightly nicer, because the way it is, there's a bunch of stuff I'm thinking, well, I want to stop him, I could see that happening, that happening, that happening. I can't affect all of them, but I could get in someone's way. And I couldn't have that because, oh, look, I've drawn another farm. So I'm just going to have to put it there because I don't have any other choice. And that irritated me a little.
Oh, that takes your agency away, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's the problem, Sid. It's just there's no agency in it. And it's okay, it's light, it's accessible.
It has agency. There is agency.
There's lots of agency. It's only at the end of the game where you have no choice about where you can put a farm.
And then that towards the end of the game,
either.
whether you're drawing 1 tile or 2 tiles, you're going to have less choice either way because the map is filled up.
Yeah.
I think when that map's empty at the beginning and you draw 1 tile, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And there is strategy, like, do you want to add your farm to another farm, try and get your points that way? Or do you want to try and get it next to a cathedral to try and get the objectives?
The answer to that is yes, you do, because if you don't, you're not going to win.
But that's
another issue with the game. You have to get the cathedral cards or you're
No, the problem is that, yes, you have to do everything. But you can't do everything. You have to try and do as much as you can, as best as you can, which actually kind of sounds like a lot of euros.
I should probably add into this caveat that what we've got is a prototype version of the game, because this has only just come off Kickstarter, and we only have the Scotland map.
Yes.
Now, apparently, from what we've been told, the Scotland map is the basic version of the game, and the island map is the advanced version of the game, which adds some extra rules. Now, I don't know what all of these are, but the one we've been told is the objective cards are now like a market. So rather than just getting a random objective card, you have control over which objective cards you get. I don't know what other things it adds, but we can. So it must be pointed out we are only reviewing half of the game here.
It's a very good point. Yeah.
The basic version of the game.
I have backed it vicariously through Andy. And I'm glad
he's now no longer backing it. I am, but obviously my copy will now become your copy.
Yeah, because we were just going to double up to save on shipping. I was going to give Andy the 40 quid and we were going to split shipping and he was going to have 2 copies delivered to his. Andy's now decided to drop out, so I'm just going to take over Andy's pledge for this. I really like the game. I think this is going to be a good game I can play with the kids, the family. This is going to be, it's a light game. It's going to be, and I think it's going to be interesting enough for brand new gamers. I think it's a nice palate cleanser as well. After all the games we played over the weekend, actually playing Rebirth, it was just nice. It was just nice to just go,
could just switch your brain off.
Let's have that chaos, but we're still playing a game. We're still interacting. We're still having fun. There's still some thought, but it is a lot lighter.
You've just described Ovaltine.
Okay.
We all enjoy a cup of Ovaltine.
I don't.
Right?
I've never had a cup of Ovaltine.
We don't admit that we sit down and enjoy a cup of Ovaltine.
I do. Ovaltine's lovely.
It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, but you also have pipe and slippers.
Yeah.
I do, yes. That is very true. I am a man of a certain age.
But it does sound there's appeal there. I mean, to me, I think those games are important in your catalogue.
It's actually interesting. We could have preempted this because I think we got 2/3 of the way through the game, me and Rory, and we both looked at each other and went, Andy's going to hate this. We knew it straight away. We knew it's just not Andy's game, and that's fine. And you're not wrong with your opinion, Andy, but I like the game. I like it for what it is, and it's not Terminus, which is not that other end of the game, which is making me think and swear because I've got my actions out of order. I'm just swearing because I've lost a few points because someone stole my freaking castle.
Yeah, no, we knew you weren't going to like it. There is a lot of randomness in this game, and you've got to make your peace with that going into it.
It's the objectives one I found weird. The objectives one was the one I thought, well. Yeah, you were just drawing the top card of the pile. And interestingly, I think this game is one of those ones that can work much better with more players. Because we played it 3 and we played it 4. Now, I've played it at a really low count, so I don't think I'd ever want to. Because when we played 3, all of us managed to get round all 8 cathedrals.
Yeah.
So we all had the full cash-in of objective cards. In the 4-player game, it got quite difficult to do that. And I remember being about halfway through the game thinking, crap, there's 2 cathedrals I can't even get to now. So that's 10 points potentially I cannot get.
Yeah.
So I think if you are going to play this game, you've got to try and play it with a max play count where you can. Much like with Terminus, I think Terminus was much better at higher play count because you're going people's way. I think this is better at higher play count because you get people's way. I think Windmill Valley doesn't matter. You can play that 1, 2, 3, or 4. It makes no bloody difference.
I think part of my issue again with it, I think we did discuss this afterwards, is that me and Alora both playing it for the first time. Neither of us could really tell, because the icons were too bloody small, what the difference is between a settlement and a cathedral. Now, once you played it once, maybe you'll be able to tell the difference. But I couldn't tell. So I was like, well, and by the time I'd realised where all the cathedrals were, they'd all gone. And I'm like, well, so I can't catch up.
Yeah, that was a really interesting observation because we had exactly the same problem. The first time we played, the symbology between a cathedral and a city is very similar and very small. And then the second time you play, you go, oh, all the cities are purple.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I didn't spot that the first time.
It's
see weird.
Purple.
Okay, interesting.
It just looks blue, which looks like the cathedral.
There was other things that pointed to you. It wasn't just that tiny symbol, but you're right, that tiny symbol, because the artwork's beautiful for the board, but that's almost at a detriment because the iconography for the cities and the cathedrals is so small.
It doesn't pop. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't pop like possibly it could.
You need more. And I think even like we talked about with going back to Terminus, the difference between the dark grey and the light grey railed area. So all the rails are either in a dark grey or a light grey border. If it's a dark grey, it's a double. And if it's a light grey, it's a single. And that didn't twig until the end of my second game. Steve pointed out to me. I was like, that's clear. Now that is clear to me, now that I've had somebody point it out. It's almost like in, when you're setting up a game of Root, you go, where does this fox, where's the next fox clearing? You just look for all the red trees, Rory. Oh, there they are, yeah. As soon as someone points out they've done the colour coding and this clever iconography, but whereas sometimes it's too clever for its own good, and you miss it.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Anyway, we are horribly out of time, so we're going to have to draw this to a close right now, I believe, unfortunately, which is a shame because I think we could actually talk about these 3 games for like another hour easily. But yeah, I don't like the idea of editing that, I must admit. So before we go, don't forget to visit our sponsor, Kienda. There is a link in the show notes below. That'll take you straight to the discount code. It'll give you money off the board game you were going to buy anyway. Maybe you'd like to buy one of the games we talked about. Maybe we should let you know when Terminus comes in for pre-order, because I think we're all agreeing it's in a hot contender for Game of the Year already.
Absolutely.
So, only thing left for me to say is thank you very much for listening. Please share, like, subscribe, all the algorithm-loving stuff, comments on our YouTube, all that. It's all good. It helps us get noticed. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and the Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Until next time, happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye.